Zaire Flowers is the number 31 player on my big board and my 4th ranked wide receiver in this draft class. He was a 3-star recruit who became a 4-year contributor for Boston College. He is 5'9", which is 8th percentile, 182 pounds, with 29.5-inch arms, which is 2nd percentile. He ran a 4.42 40, which is 82nd percentile, and overall has an 8.3 relative athletic score. In 2022, Flowers hauled in 78 receptions for 1,077 yards, which is 13.8 yards per reception, and he had 12 touchdowns. Flowers is a very sudden mover who changes directions very quickly, both with the ball in his hands after the catch and coming in and out of his breaks. He also shows excellent body control at the catch point. He does a good job of creating space to catch the ball with his body in contested catch situations. He is elusive with the ball in his hands. He ranked top 20 nationally in yards after catch per reception. Now, as for his weaknesses, he does have some drop issues. He has an 11% drop rate on his career, and a lot of that comes down to him being a body catcher. He doesn't like to extend his hands away from his body to catch the ball. He rather lets it come into his body where it can be contested and knocked away. He was also very rarely challenged at the line of scrimmage in college, and so there's questions about if he can get off of press coverage, something that could be problematic for his size profile. He has a small catch radius, and it isn't just his size and his arms, it's also that wanting the ball to come into his body. And finally, he doesn't set up his routes very well. Like, he runs routes very technically sound, but he doesn't manipulate defenders into thinking he's doing something else. He runs routes very by the book, which sounds like a good thing, but defensive backs know the book, and so sometimes they can jump his routes. I think he fits best at the next level as a slot or a move piece, somebody that you can use in space, give him two-way goes, and try to get the ball in his hands underneath to generate explosive plays. Emmanuel Forbes is the number 32 player on my big board and my 8th ranked defensive back in this class. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. He became a 3-year starter for Mississippi State who had incredible ball production with 14 career interceptions, 6 of which he returned for touchdowns, setting an NCAA record. He also had 21 passes defensed. In 2022, he was a 2nd-team All-American. He is 6'1", 166 pounds, ran a 4.35 40, which is 92nd percentile, has 79-inch wingspan, which is 92nd percentile, and overall had a 9.23 relative athletic score. In 2022, he recorded 46 tackles with 6 interceptions and 10 pass breakups. He is comfortable in both press and off coverage, but he prefers to play from an off alignment where he can key on quarterbacks and watch the routes develop in front of him. He allowed only a 20% completion rate in man coverage in 2022, which was the best in college football, while snagging 3 interceptions. He's good in man coverage, he's very instinctual in any type of coverage, and he is a ball hawk. He played wide receiver in high school, and it shows. He's probably got the best ball skills of any corner in this class. Now, as for his weaknesses, his ball hawking does have its drawbacks, and he can be susceptible to double moves at times. He's not afraid to roll the dice to make a big play. He will also struggle to stay in phase with the receiver at times from press trail techniques, and I think it's part of why he's best served playing in off coverage. But the elephant in the room is his size. 0th percentile weight. 166 pounds. Only 12 players in the NFL are under 180 pounds, and 0 of them are sub 170. Only 6 players under 180 pounds played 25+% of their snaps last season, and so that's a huge question mark for Emmanuel Forbes. He also struggles as a tackler at times because of his mass. I love this prospect. I think he fits best as a boundary corner in an off man or a zone scheme, but there's major question marks about his size and if it will translate to the next level. Kalijah Cansey is the number 33 player on my big board and my 3rd ranked interior defensive lineman in this class. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and was first team All-ACC in 2021. In 2022, he was ACC Defensive Player of the Year and an All-American. He is 6'1", 281 pounds, with 30 and 5/8 inch arms. That's second percentile height, fourth weight, and first percentile arm length. But he ran a 4.67 40, which is 99th percentile, and a 1.64 10-yard split, which was 95th percentile. His spider chart, it looks like Pac-Man. He has a 9.61 relative athletic score overall. In 2022, he had 31 tackles, 14.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, 47 pressures, and a 92.4 PFF pass rush grade that led all interior defensive linemen. Cansey is an explosive athlete. It cannot be overstated how much his quickness, agility, and speed pop off on the tape. He is a slippery slasher who finds ways to shoot gaps and to get into the backfield as a pass rusher. Also, for his size, he's got strong hands, good grip strength, and he's got exceptional body control, able to get skinny, contort his body to get around pass rushers. As for his weaknesses, he's just so undersized that it makes his projection to the NFL difficult. People want to talk about Aaron Donald because of the athleticism, and they both went to the same school, but Aaron Donald has arms that are almost 3 inches longer than Cansey, and it's going to be so hard for Cansey to play at the next level when he can't reach defenders before they get hands on him. If his initial rush is stalled, he struggles to get off of blocks, and he just can't anchor against double teams in the running game. Kalijah Cansey fits best at the next level as a penetrating 3 technique in an even front, someone who can rush the passer without having to really worry about playing the run, where he's not going to give you much. Cansey may hit as a pass rusher, or he may find himself totally unable to get on the field because of his lack of size and run defense. Will Levis is the number 34 player on my big board and my 4th ranked quarterback in this class. He is 6'4" and weighs 229 pounds. He transferred from Penn State to Kentucky for the 2021 season and had a breakout year, but in 2022 he failed to build on that season as he struggled with a litany of injuries from turf toe to a shoulder injury, as well as having a new offensive coordinator who was fired halfway through the season. In 2022, he completed 65.4% of his passes for 2,406 yards, which is 8.5 yards per attempt, while throwing 19 touchdowns versus 10 interceptions. Levis has a huge arm and can drive the ball deep downfield or outside the numbers without a big windup. His throwing motion is very compact, and he generates a lot of velocity on the passes with just a simple flick of his wrist. He's also a threat in the running game, and he's hard to bring down while he's on the move. In his career, he converted 22 of 23 QB sneak attempts, and so he can be valuable in short yardage situations as well. However, Levis is maddeningly inconsistent. He has thrown 23 interceptions in the last 2 years and fumbled 17 times in his college career. He holds the ball too long in the pocket and often takes unnecessary sacks. He struggles to read out defenses and manipulate safeties with his eyes, often locking onto his primary receiver and just refusing to come off of him. And his footwork is dreadful. He takes far too long to settle his feet under him at the top of his drop, although that could be related to the lingering turf toe issues. Will Levis is a charismatic leader who possesses the intangible traits you want in a franchise quarterback and has a lot of physical tools, but is a very raw prospect, and he will be 24 years old as a rookie. The team who drafts Levis will be casting the ultimate bet on his traits and hoping that a disappointing 2022 season can be mostly attributed to the circumstances around him. BJ Ojulari is the number 35 player on my big board and my 6th ranked edge rusher in this draft class. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school and a 3-year contributor at LSU. He was given the number 19 jersey at LSU, which represents the team's captain and a high-character person on the football team. He's also the brother of New York Giants defensive end Azeez Ojulari. He is 6'2", 248 pounds, 21 years old, had a 92nd percentile broad jump, and overall a 5.46 relative athletic score. In 2022, he notched 58 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 forced fumble. Ojulari has an extremely quick first step, and he does a really good job of leveraging that first step to get the edge on offensive tackles and then dip under their arms to get to the quarterback. He is a fluid mover who has a nice hesitation move that he uses to get offensive tackles off balance. He is very technically sound as a pass rusher. His technique is nearly flawless. And he's also really good as a read player in read option plays where he can use his athleticism to play both the running back and the quarterback at the same time. As for his weaknesses, he does lack size. He's only 15th percentile height, 10th percentile weight, and because of that, he doesn't have the strength. He struggles to play on the line of scrimmage. He struggles mightily when he is a front side run defender and he's asked to set the edge. He often gets washed out of those plays, although he is typically fine as a backside defender chasing plays down from behind. He also just doesn't have a power rushing move. It's all about speed, it's all about finesse and hesitation moves for Ojulari. I think he projects best to the next level as a 3-4 outside linebacker who will come in pass rushing situations, maybe not an every down player, but a pass rushing specialist while a team tries to develop him physically into a more powerful player at the point of attack. Keon White is the number 36 player on my big board and my 7th ranked edge rusher in this class. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school who played defensive end and tight end. He redshirted his first year and then he played tight end in 2018 before switching to defensive end full-time in 2019. In 2021, he transferred to Georgia Tech, but he missed the first 8 games of the year. And so in 2022, he became a full-time starter at defensive end for the first time, and he was a team captain. He is 6'5", which is 79th percentile, 285 pounds, which is 91st percentile, and he knocked out 30 reps on the bench press, which is 89th percentile. At his pro day, he ran a 4.79 40-yard dash, and overall he has a 9.54 relative athletic score. White is a freak athlete. He is huge and fast and explosive. He explodes out of his stance. He was even clocked on a GPS at 21 miles per hour on the field. He has positional versatility. He took reps on the edge and on the inside. You could argue he's an interior defensive lineman. He showed the ability to drop anchor inside, to rush the passer as a stand-up edge, and so you could do a lot of different things with him. He's got a high motor and a powerful, devastating punch that he delivers to offensive linemen. Now, unfortunately, he is a bit of a tweener prospect. Should he play inside or outside? That's an argument teams are going to have in their scouting rooms. He has poor timing with that punch that we talked about. It's powerful, but a lot of times it's mistimed and it lets offensive linemen engage him first. He also tends to shed blocks to the inside, which does give up the edge when he's playing as an edge defender on running plays. He is very raw in his technique and his pass rush moves, and that's not ideal for a 24-year-old prospect. He also just doesn't have the ankle flexion to be able to bend around the edge against offensive tackles. And so White is a high motor player, he's an athletic player, but he's raw. And you could sort of mold him into playing a couple different positions, but teams are going to have to decide what they want him to do, and if he fits with their team's timeline for developing prospects. Tuli Tuipulotu is the number 37 player on my big board and my 4th ranked interior defensive lineman in this class. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and committed to USC, where his brother Marlon Tuipulotu, who currently plays for the Eagles, also attended school. Also, Talanoa Hufanga for the 49ers is his cousin, so there's a lot of NFL pedigree in his bloodline. He had a big year in 2022 and was named a first-team All-American when he had 46 tackles, 22 tackles for loss, which was second in the NCAA, and 13.5 sacks, which led the NCAA. He is 6'3", which is 60th percentile, 266 pounds, which is 0th percentile, and 19th percentile arm length. Tuipulotu is a guy that is hard to peg for a position. He has rare versatility that makes him a fit in some way for every defense. He could play inside or outside in a 4-3. He could be a D-end in a 3-4. He cut a lot of weight and got a lot more athletic in 2022 to show his ability to do both, and he cut more weight for the combine, which makes me think he might want to be considered an edge. However, I think interior defensive line is a little more his speed. He converts speed to power well, and he can drive offensive linemen back into the pocket. And he also has an explosive first step off of the line. He's got a lot of tools in the toolbox as a pass rusher, but he lacks length, and he struggles as a tackler. He missed 31.4% of his tackles last season. And so this is another guy where versatility, I'm not sure what teams are going to see in him. I wouldn't trust him as a pure edge rusher. He could do it some, but he doesn't have the bend or the speed to win consistently. I think ultimately he's going to have to commit to being an early down player and bulk up and play the run from the interior, or be a late down player and keep that athleticism and that speed to be a pass rusher. I'm not entirely sure he's got the physical makeup to do both things. So this is a guy you could take, you could mold him into really whatever you want him to be, but you have to have a plan because he's not simply a plug-and-play athlete. Zach Charbonnet is the number 38 player on my big board and the second-ranked running back in this draft class. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, the 4th-ranked running back in his class, and the 46th-ranked player overall. He enrolled at Michigan, where he played for 2 years before transferring to UCLA for the 2022 season. He is 6 feet tall, 214 pounds. He ran a 4.53 40, which is 60th percentile, with a 1.54 10-yard split, which is 70th percentile. And overall, he had an 8.72 relative athletic score. In 2022, he rushed for 1,359 yards on 7 yards per carry, with 14 touchdowns. He also had 321 yards receiving on 37 receptions. His 135 yards per game was 4th most in the nation, and his yards per carry was 10th. He also had 24 rushes of 15-plus yards, which was the 5th most in the country. He broke 53 tackles and fumbled just 1 time on 232 touches. Charbonnet is a powerful runner who plays through contact and always keeps his feet moving. He makes great lateral cuts in space, and he's sort of a one-cut runner who is really good at stringing a run out and then cutting upfield, hitting the hole. He's also a reliable check down target. He's got good hands, not a lot of a route tree. So you're not going to put him on a lot of routes, but you can check the ball down to him. You can also keep him in and block. He's pretty solid in pass protection. As for his weaknesses, he lacks home run speed. 60th percentile 40 time. He doesn't have a ton of elusiveness, and he will run upright and he takes big hits at times. But overall, he's a pretty north-south runner, a one-cut scheme sort of a guy. I think he's scheme diverse. You could put him in a power scheme. You could put him in a zone scheme. You can ask him to take reps out of the backfield. You can keep him into block. Zach Charbonnet projects as a 3-down back that could fit in any scheme in the NFL and make an impact immediately as a rookie. Drew Sanders is the number 39 player on my big board and my top-ranked linebacker in this class. He was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school where he played quarterback, wide receiver, and linebacker. He played 2 years at Alabama mostly as an edge before transferring to Arkansas in 2020, where he became more of an off-ball linebacker. He is 6'4", which is 96th percentile, 235 pounds, and he ran a 4.59 at his pro day. Overall, he has a relative athletic score of a 9.28, and he's very young as a prospect at just over 21 years old. In 2022, he had 103 tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, 1 interception, 5 passes defensed, 1 fumble recovery, 3 forced fumbles, and 39 pressures. Sanders has a rare combination of length and explosiveness. He is such a fluid mover in space, and it gives him excellent pass rushing ability on the edge or even as a blitzer through the A-gap, blitzing from depth at linebacker. Additionally, he showed good instincts in zone coverage in 2022, especially for a guy being new to linebacker. Remember, he was an edge at Alabama prior to his transfer, and so him picking up coverage so quickly bodes well for his development moving forward. As for his weaknesses, he can't really diagnose run plays very well. He struggles to key on those quickly, and he struggles to get off of blocks in traffic. He plays really upright, and he loses leverage against offensive linemen in the box. He doesn't really break down well as a tackler either. He had 22 missed tackles in 2022. But when he squares you up, he delivers devastating blows, and it can lead to forced fumbles. He's likely going to need to add mass to play in the box the next level. 96th percentile height, but only 33rd percentile weight. I think his scheme fit is as a Mike linebacker in a blitz-heavy scheme. You want to use his pass-rushing background to go get after the passer, but I do think he projects best as a linebacker. So getting him on the strong side, allowing him to come downhill against the run into blitz is going to get the most out of Drew Sanders at the next level. Antonio Johnson is my 40th ranked player on my big board and my 9th ranked defensive back in this class. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school who became a 2-year starter for Texas A&M, during which time he racked up 150 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss, 6 pass breakups, and 4 forced fumbles. He is 6'2", which is 86th percentile, 198 pounds, which is 18th percentile, and he's just 21 years old. He ran a 4.5 240 at the combine, but only had 8 reps on the bench press, which is 1st percentile. His 31-inch vertical was 5th percentile. Overall, he had a 5.41 relative athletic score. In 2022, he had 71 tackles and 1 pass breakup. Johnson is a physical player who is at his best when he's coming downhill in the run game. He's an outstanding tackler who knocks running backs backwards at the point of attack. He's athletic enough to carry tight ends up the seam or to cover running backs in the flat, but he is primarily a zone defender in coverage. And in zone, I think he does a good job of recognizing route concepts and identifying threats to his zone. He's a versatile player who played 110 snaps deep, 128 snaps in the box, 280 snaps in the slot, and 49 snaps on the line of scrimmage in 2022, so you can use him in a lot of different ways. However, he has poor ball skills. I mean, he does a good job of disrupting the catch point, but he doesn't really try to make a play on the ball, which shows up in his lack of interception numbers. He's also slow to flip his hips and change direction in coverage, which is where most of his problems in man coverage come from. And I mentioned his versatility earlier, but that can be both a positive and a negative because the question becomes, where will he play in the NFL? And teams often don't like players that don't have a clearly defined role. I think his best fit at the next level would be as a slot or a box safety in a zone scheme. I mean, he's a thumper at the line of scrimmage. If you get him up close to the line of scrimmage and don't ask him to play deep in space, I think that's where his early contributions can come in the NFL. And there you have it, my number 31 through 40 ranked players on my big board. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Give me a follow on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL, where I will be tweeting this content out over the next few days. And make sure you join us live for the Edge of Philly Sports live draft show for both nights 1 and 2 of the NFL Draft.